Welcome to Who Has Time to Read, the show where your hosts Jeff and Adam, that's me, dive into the pages of our favorite reads from the last month. Each episode, we explore a mix of bestsellers and hidden gems, sharing insights, surprises, and recommendations. Whether you're a lifelong reader or just looking for your next great book, you're in the right place. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's turn the page on today's episode of Who Has Time to Read. Hi, and welcome to Who's Got Time to Read, episode 3, I think. This episode is brought to you by Ripples Media. The Ripples Media, our purpose is to fill the world with authentic and powerful stories to inspire positive change. If you want to write a book, go to ripples.media. And
Edgewise, Edgewise.media, turn a podcast into massive amounts of social media content with no additional work.
We swapped companies there. That was fun. I like that. We should do that more often. All right, Jeff. I think it's been a month. I'm reading some books. I'm reading some longer books. I feel like I haven't finished as many books as usual, but like what have you finished in the last 30 days or so?
Yeah. And I just picked out 2 to share this time.
Yeah.
I will say what's been nice about us starting this podcast is I am actively trying to read more because I know how much you read and I need to at least finish 3 or 4 or 5 books to have a couple to talk about a month. So
fair. That's fair.
I've had an uptick. The first one I'll mention is a 50-year-old book called Carrie. So this was Stephen King's first ever published book. I'm a massive Stephen King fan, and I mostly like his non-horror type stuff, which most people don't even know he writes non-horror type stuff.
Yeah.
But the 50-year anniversary of Carrie just came out, and I thought, all right, and it's fantastic.
Really?
It's so good. I was so impressed. Yeah.
Oh, I might have to read that. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's the style of it's very cool. I can't believe it's a first published book. It's pretty great.
I just read something about him the other day that he was so prolific when he first came out. There was this belief that like authors could only release 1 book a year. So he created a fake like a fake author and started writing books under that one too. And then eventually combined, like somebody figured it out and combined the two. And like, it's wild, man. It's unbelievable how prolific he is.
And his books are great. I mean, I read every new one that comes out and they're always good. All right, let's bounce back and forth. What about you? What's a book you finished?
I read Becoming. I actually listened to this one, Becoming by Michelle Obama. And it was good. It wasn't as good as her more recent book. I think it was much longer and it was much more like autobiographical. So it was more like about her life and about how, growing up and where she came from and then went to the White House and that experience, which was valuable. But I really liked her newer book because it dealt more with hope and kind of that sort of thing. And it also wove in some autobiographical stuff. So it was good. Just not quite as good as her second book.
Well, and it's interesting because I had only listened to Becoming. I haven't, I'm going to listen, of course, to the second one based on your recommendation. Okay. So I'm usually reading a book on a comedian's journey when I have the opportunity. I love the storylines of
like comedians. Steve Martin's book was amazing like that, right? Born Standing Up, right? Isn't that it?
Standing Up. Great title, great book. Yeah. I love those kind of entrepreneurial journeys. So I'm a big Martin Short fan.
Yep.
And so I just finished listening to his I Must Say. And it's the subtitle is My Life as a Humble Comedy Legend, which is like a classic Martin Short. Dude, it was really good. It was heartfelt. I almost cried at one point.
Wow.
But it was funny. It's so good. And of course, these you got to listen to because it's their voice.
Yeah.
But just being an entrepreneur, I find such similarities in their story. Steve Martin was the same. So I really liked it. I'm giving both of those 5 stars. I know yours aren't necessarily 5 this week, but I loved it.
Yeah. Okay. My next one also listened to was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, an old classic that I think you actually turned me on to. And I'll say this, like the storytelling was really good. It was very entertaining. I never knew most of that stuff about the restaurant industry. Like I had no idea it was kind of like the Wild West out there and all these wild characters and stuff. It kind of makes me nervous if my kids decide to go to the restaurant industry, to be honest. But I also found it kind of sad because like there were a lot of moments in the book where he talked about like, like how he's going to continue his life and how other people might have, done other other things that weren't healthy to themselves. I don't want to say the words, but so it just kind of was sad knowing how he ended his life. So it was good, but it's sad at the same time.
It's one of my favorites, though.
Yeah.
I loved it. So
Yeah.
I do think people should check it out. But yes, go in eyes wide open for sure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of language, and there's a lot of like not suitable for work stuff in there. So just
even though he's describing stuff that happened at a work.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Yeah, but it's and like the way he like very casually talks about like mob restaurants in in New York, I thought was hilarious. So it's like, whatever. This podcast is sponsored by ripples.media. If you're an aspiring author looking to publish your first book, go to ripples.media to find a community and publisher that can support you. This episode is also brought to you by Edgewise.media. If you want to create a podcast for yourself or for your business, or you need help with content creation, go to Edgewise.media to learn more. All right, Jeff. What books? Let's go through books we're reading right now. So, what do you have?
Okay, so the first one I'll mention, actually, Lisa Bauman, who commented, I don't know if you saw this, she commented when we landed on the name of this podcast in the thread, and she said, you guys should read my book.
Oh, okay.
And so I had connected with Lisa a while back, so the book is called Harasshole, and it's about an unfortunate experience she had working at United Way, the Atlanta or Georgia chapter, but the global chapter, the headquarters. And it's funny because that's when I connected with her years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, about 48 and 48. But I'm maybe 3/4 through. She's a very good writer. It's a bit of a heartbreaking story. And I just love that she's putting it out there. So I'm sure at our next one, I'll be rating it and saying that I finished it because I'm going through it quick, but it's a really good book. I really appreciate that she put it out there.
Okay. All right. For mine, one that I'm working on right now that is very different from most of the books I read. It's called Come As You Are. I need to find the author's name, but it's a book all about sex, and it's actually targeted towards women. And a friend of mine told me about it, said it might be interesting, and I'm like, why not? Like I'm up for all kinds of books. I'm an equal opportunity book nerd, and so I've been listening to it, and I'll say this: like, it's got some really positive messages for women in particular. But if you really want like a deep dive into like everything you'd ever want to know about sex, like it's your book. It's wild. So
okay.
Yeah.
I did not expect that, but here we are.
I mean, you asked, right?
How do I transition from that? Okay. So there's 2 books that I've been reading for months and I'll explain them. So the first is the 1619 Project, which everybody knows, but I'm going to read the descriptive quick paragraph on it because I think it's just so powerful. So it says, in late August 1619, a ship arrived in the British colony of Virginia bearing a cargo of 20 to 30 enslaved people from Africa. Their arrival led to the barbaric and unprecedented system of American chattel slavery that would last for the next 250 years. This is sometimes referred to as the country's original sin, but it is more than that. It is the source of so much that still defines the United States. It's a fascinating book. It's a perfect book to like pick up, read a chapter or 2, put down, come back to, let it settle. So that one I've been reading for a while. And then the other one I read, it's interesting. I have King A Life by Jonathan Eig. It's sort of the newest biography on Martin Luther King Jr. It's really great. I'm like 200 plus pages in, but I still feel like I'm only 25% in. It's a massive book. But it's the book I read on the weekend. So I have the book in our living room, and on weekends I'll pick it up in the morning, have some coffee and read it. And it's a really powerful one. So those are two good ones.
Now that's interesting though. Like, do you have a specific book for week? So on weekends, like I typically will be like, it's Saturday, I'm just doing fiction today. I'll like relax like that way. I'll just dive into the fiction book. But you have like a specific weekend book instead.
Just this time because so my wife got me this picture like a wooden triangle, and it can sit like. It's designed to put a book over. So like whatever page you're on the book, you lay the book over it.
Yep.
And this book has such a great cover that I basically immediately put it. So it's like in our living room. And so it's just like says King, and and it's kind of a powerful book to sit there. And because of that, it sits there. And on the weekends or when I spend more time right around that area. So I wouldn't say I
So
normally do this, but it's something I'm doing now.
what I'm hearing you say is I need to get in touch with one of your kids and get them to mess with you by flipping a couple of pages from the book, like ahead
Yeah.
in the book. You'd be like, wait, what's happening? What's going
Yeah.
on? So,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Done. All right. Let's see. The other book that I'm working on right now is a book called The Expectation Effect. And it's about how what we expect to happen can often affect how our bodies react to things and how things happen for us. So for example, one of the things that I read today, I think was in one of the studies, it was like this milkshake experiment, and they took this milkshake that say had 350 calories, and they said to one group of people, "Hey, drink this milkshake. It's creamy," and they used all these like super fancy like it's really yummy words, and it's 650 calories, and drink it, and then let us know how hungry you are in like 2 hours. So they drank it. 2 hours later, like, oh no, still full, really, really filling milkshake, blah, blah, blah. And then they give the same exact milkshake to other people. And they're like, oh, here's the light version. And it's, they used all these sort of diet terms. And they said, oh, and it's only 200 calories or 250 calories. And then 2 hours later, they ask them how hungry. And they're like, oh, I'm very, very hungry. And so the whole point of the book is that it goes into like deep into placebo effects and with medicine and all that. And the fact is like what you believe to be true about medicine, about food, about everything else has to some degree an effect on how your body responds and reacts to those things. Now, I'm hoping it kind of gets into some other things as well. I'm about halfway through the book so far. The book has a lot of scientific studies in it. I'd say too many, and I've started just kind of skipping through those quite a bit. So I'm getting through it much faster than I was previously. But all in all, it's an interesting book. And I think like if I was ever someone that wanted to like do more dieting, or if I ended up having like some kind of illness and I needed to be on a medication, I think understanding some of the nuances in this book could dramatically impact how effective those things were for me. So I think there's value in that.
Does the author give start to say here's how you can apply this, like going into a situation?
There are some applicable things. The hard part about a book like this is that, and I think I was telling you this earlier, like this feels like a TED talk that got expanded into a book with a million examples. And so the hard part is finding those applications amongst the sea of, and this scientific study in 1974, and this scientific study in 1978, and this, you have to kind of dig through all that to find it. This is one of those books that I'll be happy to go back to Chat GPT and talk through with like the little fake AI and like, what should I remember? And it can just kind of help me remember those things. So
I like that.
That's my plan.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
I know we had a couple of random things we want to talk about.
Yeah. So I think first on the list is like, how do we track this stuff? Right. And we both track it the same way, but you started it. So why don't you talk about how you track it and I'll chime in if I have anything to say.
Yeah. We both use Notion. And I don't know that we're recommending everyone go out and start using Notion. There's a learning curve. But once you get using it, it can be, for me, it's like, it's where I go for everything. I store everything in there. But yeah, you can think of it as a spreadsheet, right? We have a list of all the books we've read, when we've read them. I think we both categorize them, fiction, nonfiction, or different topics. So, and then 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. So like I could go now, and for the last, 6 years or so, I could go, what are all the 5-star fiction books I've read, or 5-star history books I've read, or 5-star audiobooks, so it's a great place. I actually started doing it because I would forget that I had read a book.
Same.
You get 5 years in and you've read 30, 40, 50 books a year. You're like, yeah, I think I read that, and you can't remember. So that's why I started it, but now it's a nice place to go. And, when friends say, hey, do you have a good audiobook? Like you did me recently.
Let me go look. Yeah.
I said, oh yeah, here's my audiobook. So
Yeah. And I like to so I do all the things you did, but I add a couple of different statuses that I find helpful. So like one is like, I'll say like, oh, it's a book I finished and listened to. It's a book I finished and read. So I differentiate between those. I also categorize books that I abandoned. And so I want to know, like, if somebody like says, oh, did you read that book? I'm like, I started that book and then I left it, and I'm trying to get better about abandoning books more quickly. I recently got through 2 fiction books about 50% through, and I was like, this isn't working. I got to let this go. And so I did, which was good. But I do the same thing with you, 5-star ratings, star ratings. I also do the date I completed it, so I can see how many books I've read in a year or which books I've finished in the last month. And then I try to make some notes, like copying my notes and highlights and stuff
Yeah.
the same way you do to it as well. So
That's right. We're both doing that.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You mentioned dropping books, and that's something that I do as well because you don't want to
Yeah.
waste time.
Yeah.
I'm curious. The more you read, or at least what I've experienced, the more, or rather, the less tolerable I become for
Yes.
bad writing.
That's right. Yeah, that's
And
exactly
fiction
it.
books are like, so many people are like, you got to read this, and you start reading it, and you're like 2 chapters, and you're like, oh, this is bad writing. I
This
can't
is
even get
bad.
through it.
Or the plot doesn't take off fast enough, or it's confusing. Like I started reading another book, super highly rated on Amazon, and I'm like 1 or 2 chapters in. I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. Like this is not good. I'm out. So and like my criteria for this has changed over time. Like I used to would ask myself the question like, should I continue reading this book? Like if I asked that question. And then I would try to deliberate through that. And now I've realized if I ask the question, should I continue reading this book? The answer is by default, no, I should not continue. Like it's automatically a no. So as soon as I ask the question, as soon as I realize I'm asking the question, I'm out, I'm done. I'm not embarrassed by it. It's just not for me. So yeah. All right. And the next thing I think we're going to talk about is our preferred reading method. So again, you started this, so you can introduce it and I'll chime in.
Well, I think we both, I'll put it this way. I think we both listen to plenty of books. So like we love Audible or library or whatever you use.
Yeah.
And I guess before I talk about the device, how often, I can't remember, how often are you reading a physical book?
Pretty rarely. I mean, out of all the books I read in a given year, maybe 5 are going to be a physical book, and all the rest are going to be Kindle or listening or whatever else. Yeah,
I'm still always. I mean, I just looked over. I've got like a stack of ones that I'm reading right now that are physical. So I like to have. If there's a book that just absolutely was one of my favorites, and I read it on Kindle, I'll actually buy it physical so I can put it. So I have a bookshelf.
That's a great
bookshelf
idea.
with just all my favorite books.
Yeah.
And it gets really interesting because that bookshelf's only so big. I mean, I think maybe it's got, I don't know, maybe it's got 50 to 70 books on it. But as I want to add one, I have to think, well, what one comes off? So I always have this like running list of top books. Anyways, we both love to read on the Kindle. We love the Kindle Scribe. So yeah, I was first in the, we'll give Mickey Mellon credit for this. He let me play with his Kindle Scribe. And I loved it. So basically it's like a bigger Kindle, which at first I know you were like me, like, I don't think I'll like the reading as quite as much. Yeah, there you go. But I actually prefer it on the bigger screen.
Oh yeah. It's
so
game changer.
It's so good. But then I take all my notes on it. So if I'm in a meeting, you'll see me on a Kindle Scribe. So I love that device.
Yeah. Me too. I mean, so two things. One is I did not think I would like the bigger tablet for reading. I thought, oh, the small one's fine. No, it's a game changer. It's so much better for me for reading. I love it. And being able to just like highlight something and then handwrite a note about that thing, and then that pops up in the PDF summary that I get at the end. Like it's so nice because I can be like highlighting like blog post and here's the title or whatever else. It's so good. I use it for tons of stuff as well. So
yeah. Hey, before we drop off, tell me how many books you've read so far this year, and I'll look up the same.
Oh man, that's a tough one. I actually don't know. Let's see.
Oh, you don't have it already? You don't have a...
I might. Let me see if I do. I was actually getting... Oh yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah. So I'm actually only 21 books in this year.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm 17. Yeah. I thought you were going to double me by now.
No, I've been reading a lot longer books. And so, it's been kind of slow as far as kind of going through them so far this year. And as I look at it though, I'm starting to wonder if a few are missing because I feel like, hold on, I think these are all fiction.
Yeah, I bet there's some in your reading list that you may not have flagged as finished.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I've got something wrong with my filter here. Let's see. No, I guess that's correct.
I've got a whole bunch of 5. Actually, I've got more than half or 5 stars in my 17 so far.
Yeah, interesting. Good. Yeah, I've got quite a few 5 stars as well. It's certainly some for fiction as well. But yeah. Now I was going to ask you then. I mean, if we're looking stuff up, have you looked in your Audible app to see your total listening time in Audible?
I didn't even know you could do that. How do you do that?
Dude. Oh, so open your Audible app and go to profile, and let's see, under profile, scroll down, and it should say listening time, and then go to total. I think you're going to blow me out of the water on this. I think you got an earlier start than I did, but I'm really curious.
Okay. I got 1 month and 17 hours.
Oh, okay. I got you.
What do
Wow.
you got? What are you at?
I've listened for 1 month, 20 days, 23 hours, and 2 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 month, 1 day. Oh, yeah. You did beat me. Yeah.
Wow. I'm shocked. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. So,
And don't you sometimes use like the library app or
oh
something?
yeah.
like
Yeah. I
that?
use Libby a lot. Yeah. I've
But that
listened to,
doesn't count toward this, right?
yeah, it doesn't count towards it. No,
Oh,
I've
you're
listened and
you
I've
probably
listened
doubled
to,
me.
well, so I've listened to Libby some, not doubled because I've only listened to probably 10 books on Libby. And then I've also started listening to books on Spotify because Spotify Premium, you get 15 hours a month of audio book listening, which is pretty great. So now I've got 3 different places to listen to books at, which is nice.
Yeah, I think you listen to books a lot more than me, actually. I'm not really surprised by that. I know I started earlier than you, but I don't listen quite that much. I only listen really when driving. And then when I used to be able to run before I got to be 48 years old and my knees don't work anymore, I used to listen when I ran. So
Yeah,
that ended like,
that's fair.
oh, a little while
It's
ago.
harder to listen while you're like playing tennis. Like that's not a thing, right? So,
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not.
all right, let's Jeff, how can our listeners find and connect with you?
Yeah, probably best way is to either check out jeffhillemeyer.com or find me on LinkedIn. How about you?
AdamJWalker.com. It's got links to everything and easy place to find me. That's all for today's episode of Who Has Time to Read. Thanks for joining us on this literary journey. If you enjoyed our bookish banter and discovered some new reads, please take a moment to rate us on your favorite podcast platform and share this episode with your friends and fellow book lovers on social media. Your support helps us reach more listeners and keep the conversations going. So until next time, keep turning those pages and we'll be back soon with more books to share on Who Has Time to Read.